All right, let's talk about the Miami Dolphins, who were in a really unique spot as, despite being a pretty good team last year, still have a lot of holes to fill this draft. So that's a unique situation you don't always see. They decided to go. So the chart you see next to me, the way it works is the number all the way to the left is when the player was drafted. Next number over is when that player was projected to be drafted, and then you have player name and position. Chop Robinson, a guy I really liked, certainly a speed rush player, but also played good run defense, which usually you don't see. Usually those speed rush guys always are, like, oh, they're just trying to jump each time, trying to get past the tackle, and are leaving themselves open in the run game. That's not the case with Chop. He's a very well-rounded player and someone I really liked. So even though it's a slight reach on the consensus big board, I'm not mad at this one whatsoever. They do have, obviously, Bradley Chubb and Jalen Phillips both coming off of the injuries, and even Shaq Barrett, who hasn't looked the same since his Achilles injury. So when you have that, adding Chop Robinson to the mix feels like you could be good there. And who knows, maybe Chubb and Phillips will be back to as good as they can be. Well, then great. Now you have 3 edge rushers. It's not like only 2 edge rushers play every single snap. So that's something that I would say is definitely a reason to feel optimistic. And I really liked a few of these next picks as well, where you have first Patrick Paul, who is, listen, 6'7", 315 pounds, and honestly has really good analytics this past season on top of it. So when you add all of that, I mean, you might be wondering, well, why wasn't he considered more of a hyped-up prospect? He was projected to go 68th. They got him at 55. Well, the run blocking stuff isn't great. It just isn't. But, the pass blocking is fantastic. I mean, I don't know. I feel like there's plenty of these types of guys who go, round 1. So getting him mid-round 2, that's totally worth it for me. I'm on board. That this feels like a good decision by Miami to get an offensive lineman, which, let's just be honest, that's another position of need. Again, what do you do at tackle? I think is maybe a question now, because that wasn't their biggest area of weakness. But again, you can shift guys around. There's ways to make it work. So that's interesting. Running back wasn't their biggest area of weakness, you could argue, because Devin Achane was really good, and Raheem Mostert was, really good. But at the same time, they like to have speed. Who knows how long Mostert's going to play for? I mean, the guy's 32 years old. We always talk about running backs once they turn 25 are basically elderly. Raheem Mostert's kind of on the old side for just a football player at this point. So, not that running back depth seems like it's the most important thing, but for a team like Miami who really uses running backs, I really like Jalen Wright as a player too. So, and again, he was projected to go 50 spots earlier. So all that stuff, yeah, usually I'm not a huge fan of drafting running backs, but this is one I will defend, I think. So far, Miami having a great draft, in my opinion, and that's going to continue, as I really like Muhammad Kamara as well, an edge rusher out of Colorado State, who, again, does have very good pass rushing analytics. The question for him, similar to how Patrick Paul has some run blocking questions, Kamara has some run defense questions for sure, but his pass rush stuff is so good that, listen, if he's just a third down guy for pick 158, that's totally worth it. He was projected to go 102, and you can see why when you look at the pass blocking, analytics and stuff, and just watching his highlights, it's really good. Is a guy who's a bit of a one-year wonder as well. I suppose that's the other, other concern you might have in this situation. But and is a bit older at 23, so it's not like he's a super young guy. Those are maybe some concerns you could have, but as a whole, really like Muhammad Kamara's game, and I think that this is a bit of a steal at 158, quite frankly. After that point, we have some interesting flyers is what I would use to describe all of these players. First, Malik Washington. They drafted a couple of Washington wide receivers, not to be confused with receivers that played in Washington, because obviously that's a very different thing. A lot of those guys were drafted as well, just not to the Miami Dolphins. Malik Washington's a player who, really good athleticism numbers and stuff like that, but also someone who's just 5'8", 190 pounds. So you're thinking, okay, slot guy, cool, we got a slot guy. Well, didn't exactly do a lot of the nuances and stuff that you usually like with slot guys. Wasn't great at the. He isn't someone I evaluated particularly closely, but he's just from doing the research. What I've read is he's not someone who's great at understanding the little nuances and how to get open in zone and how to use route running to help him out, which usually you need if you're going to be that slot guy. So this feels like Miami is kind of saying, hey, this guy has the skill set to be a slot guy. We obviously could use a slot guy. We don't, we're good on outside guys. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, okay, doesn't get much better than that. And obviously they can play the slot well as well. But, in an ideal world, you'd have a different guy who can come in, get that third option as a receiver. Can he be that guy? Possibly. Yeah, possibly. So it's probably worth a pick at 184. He projected to go 94. So that's kind of a crazy steal according to the consensus big board. Then there's Patrick McMorris, who was drafted 198th, was not on the consensus big board. There's over 600 players on the consensus big board. McMorris was not on the list. I did not evaluate McMorris. Sorry, I did not get 700 players deep in my evaluation personally. But just from researching what I think they like about him, does feel like someone who, doesn't have great athletic traits and isn't a very tradesy player. I think I wonder if they feel like he can be someone who could potentially just kind of know what you have to do if he does get thrown in, a kind of a smart player that if he gets thrown in, might be able to do a decent job at making plays work that way. So I think that's kind of what they like about him, and maybe a special teams guy on top of it, of course. Anytime a defensive back is going here, it's special, you think, okay, maybe special teams. Still, though, probably not the one that you're getting super excited about if you're a Miami fan, but hey, who knows? They've spent a lot more research on this than I have, so it's totally possible there's something I'm missing. But for now, kind of a bit of a head scratcher. Then you have Taj Washington, the other Washington receiver. This is a guy who, better athletic score is 5'10", 174, so definitely on the smaller side. On top of it, had a decent. It's someone where like, every time you see someone picked, 241, the question is, okay, what kind of player are you? Are you someone with, really good production, but not necessarily the physical traits, and that's why you fell? Are you someone with, really good physical traits, but no production, and that's why you fell? Or are you just someone who kind of isn't really great at either, and so because of that, like, there's not really a reason to draft you? He's kind of that guy, where it's like, he didn't really give teams a lot of reason to draft him. That being said, there's something to be said for pick 241. Instead of going out and just, taking a complete flyer or potentially lighting a pick on fire, going out and saying, let's just get a guy who can, like, he could be a depth player. He'll probably be on our roster in 3 years at least. So, like, let's go out and get him. Okay, makes sense to me. So, yeah, definitely someone who, again, do wonder if he's he's someone who did play special teams. He was a gunner in college, so, like, he'll be a gunner. Like, that's what they're doing. And again, if you can check multiple boxes, you're more likely to get drafted, right? Because now you're not lighting a pick on fire. Even if he doesn't end up being a starting wide receiver, he's at least someone who can contribute in other ways. So that's what that is. But yeah, as a whole, again, the top 4 picks are kind of the key ones. I thought the Dolphins nailed those top 4. Some intrigue in the bottom 3 picks as well. So as a whole, again, really good draft by the Dolphins. I thought they did a strong job. So yeah, those are my thoughts. What are yours? Let me know in the comments below. Always love hearing from y'all. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.